The military transport vehicle moved slowly through the narrow valley on planet Bareth Prime. Inside the vehicle, Sergeant Jake Morrison stood with his rifle ready. He watched the alien visitors carefully. This was supposed to be a peaceful mission, but Jake had learned never to trust peace too much. Among the aliens sat Queen Azara. She was the ruler of the Crithian people. The Crithians looked very different from humans. They were tall and thin. Their skin looked like crystal or colored glass. When light hit them, small rainbows appeared on their bodies. Queen Azara sat very straight in her seat. She did not move or speak much. Jake had only been assigned to this mission yesterday. Another guard got sick, so Jake took his place. He did not speak the Crithian language. He did not know their customs. He never thought he would be this close to their queen. The humans and Crithians had been fighting a war for 3 years. Many people on both sides had died. This meeting was supposed to help stop the war. 6 Crithian royal guards surrounded their queen. These warriors were huge, almost 7 feet tall. They wore special armor that seemed to be part of their own bodies. Jake had heard stories about these guards. People said they were the best fighters in the whole Crithian Empire. People said they would die before letting anyone hurt their queen. The valley was quiet. Too quiet. Jake felt nervous, but he could not say why. His training told him something was wrong. He looked out the small window and saw tall cliffs on both sides of the road. If someone wanted to attack them, this would be a perfect place. Then everything exploded. The first vehicle in their group burst into flames. The sound was so loud that Jake's ears hurt. The transport he was in turned sharply to one side. Jake fell against the wall. Through the window, he saw people with weapons running along the top of the cliffs. They were raiders, criminals who attacked anyone for money. Someone shouted into the radio, "Ambush, everyone take defensive positions." The back door of the transport blew open. Smoke filled the inside. Jake grabbed his rifle and moved toward Queen Azara. But her guards were already around her. They made a wall with their bodies to protect her. The human diplomat next to Jake was shouting into his radio, calling for help. Then the second bomb hit their vehicle. The transport flipped over on its side. Jake felt himself flying through the air. Metal screamed and bent. Glass broke into 1,000 pieces. For a moment, Jake could not see anything. When his eyes cleared, he was lying on the rocky ground outside. The burning transport was very close to him. He could feel the heat from the fire. His ears were ringing from the explosions. Everything sounded far away. But Jake forced himself to stand up. He had to find other survivors. He had to help them. He saw the Crithian guards climbing out of the broken transport. They were carrying Queen Azara between them. Jake felt relief. At least she was alive. But then he saw more raiders coming down from the cliffs. There were so many of them, maybe 30 or 40. A missile flew down from the cliff and hit the ground near the guards. The explosion threw them in different directions. Queen Azara fell on the rocks. She was hurt but still moving. Jake watched as the guards got up and looked around. They looked scared. Jake had never thought he would see fear in these famous warriors. Then something happened that Jake could not believe. The guards looked at each other. They looked at their queen lying on the ground. They looked at the raiders coming closer. And then, one by one, they ran away. The royal guards of the Crithian Empire, the warriors who swore to protect their queen with their lives, simply left her. They ran toward the other end of the valley. They ran to save themselves. Jake stood frozen. He could not believe what he was seeing. Queen Azara was pushing herself up on one arm. Her strange eyes were very wide. She looked at her guards running away. Then she looked at the raiders getting closer. She knew she was going to die. Jake did not think about what to do next. His body just moved. He ran toward the queen as fast as he could. His boots pounded on the rocks. The raiders were shooting at him. The energy from their weapons made the dirt explode around his feet. But Jake did not slow down. He reached Queen Azara just as the first raider came around a large rock. Jake did not stop to think. He put himself between the queen and the enemy. He raised his rifle. "Stay down," he shouted at her. He did not know if she understood English or not. Jake fired his rifle. The first raider fell down. More raiders came behind the first one. Jake knew he could not fight them all. There were too many. But he had made a promise when he became a soldier. He promised to protect people who could not protect themselves. It did not matter that this person was supposed to be his enemy. Queen Azara stared up at the human soldier standing over her. Her own people had run away and left her to die. But this human, this soldier from the species she was at war with, had stayed. He was fighting to protect her. In that moment, something important changed. Neither Jake nor the Queen understood it yet, but their two species would never be the same again. More raiders were coming. Jake could see at least 20 of them now. They were coming from 3 different directions. He looked at how many bullets he had left. About 40 rounds. The math was simple and bad. He could not win this fight, but Jake Morrison had stopped caring about winning. He only cared about one thing now. He had to keep Queen Azara alive as long as possible. Maybe help would come. Maybe the other human soldiers would arrive in time. It was a small chance, but it was better than nothing. Jake fired again and again. Each shot had to count. Each bullet had to hit a target. The raiders were getting smarter now. They were hiding behind rocks and moving more carefully. They had seen what happened to the first ones who got too close. Behind Jake, Queen Azara tried to stand up. She was injured. Blood that glowed with a soft light was coming from a cut on her side. But she was alive. That was all that mattered to Jake right now. "Can you move?" Jake called to her. He shot at another raider who was trying to sneak around to the side. To his surprise, the Queen answered in English. Her accent was very strong, but Jake could understand her. "Yes, I can move." Jake felt surprised, but he did not have time to think about it. "There are some rocks over there to the right. We need to get behind them. They will give us cover." Queen Azara looked at him with her strange rainbow eyes. Then she nodded. Jake fired several shots quickly to make the raiders hide. Then he grabbed the Queen's arm and they ran together. Energy weapons fired at them. Jake felt one shot burn his shoulder through his uniform. It hurt badly, but he did not stop running. They had to reach those rocks. They dove behind the rocks just as more shots hit where they had been standing. Jake pressed his back against the stone. He was breathing hard. He checked his rifle. 32 bullets left. He had 2 more magazines in his vest. That was all the ammunition he had. This was going to be a very short fight, but at least he would not die alone. And at least he would die doing the right thing. Sometimes Jake thought that was enough. Jake fired his rifle again and again. Each shot was careful and aimed. He counted his bullets in his head. Maybe 40 rounds left in total. At least 20 raiders were coming closer from 3 sides. The numbers were not good. But Jake had stopped thinking about the numbers when he decided to stay with the Queen. Behind him, Queen Azara had moved to a sitting position. Her hands pressed against the ground like she was trying to keep herself steady. Jake looked back quickly and saw her staring at him. Her eyes were strange, like they had many tiny mirrors inside them. They seemed to see colors that humans could not even imagine. "Can you move?" Jake asked her. He did not expect her to answer, but she surprised him again. "Yes, I can move," she said in her heavily accented English. Jake would think about how she knew his language later. Right now, they needed to survive. "There are rocks over there at 3 o'clock. We need to get there. They will give us better cover than these." Queen Azara started to say something about her guards. Her voice sounded empty and sad. "Your guards are gone," Jake said, shooting another raider who got too close. "I am all you have right now, Your Majesty. So unless you want to die here, we have to move now." Something in the way he spoke must have reached her. She nodded her head. Jake fired several shots quickly to make the raiders hide behind their own cover. Then he grabbed the Queen's arm and they ran. They sprinted across open ground. Jake felt the heat of energy weapons flying past his head. One shot hit his shoulder and burned through his uniform. The pain was sharp and hot, but he did not stop running. They reached the rocks and dove behind them just as many shots tore through the space where they had been standing. Jake pressed his back against the stone. He was breathing very hard. He checked his ammunition. 32 rounds left in this magazine. He had 2 spare magazines in his vest. That was everything he had. Queen Azara sat next to him. Her chest was moving up and down quickly from running. Up close, Jake could see that her skin was not just like crystal. It actually bent light and made tiny rainbows on her arms and face. She was hurt. A deep cut was on her side where metal from the explosion had hit her. "You are bleeding," Jake said. He reached for his medical kit. She looked down at the wound like she was seeing it for the first time. "It is not going to kill me. I will live long enough to die the right way." "Nobody is dying today if I can help it," Jake said. He pulled out a pressure bandage from his kit. "This is going to hurt." He pressed the bandage against her wound. She made a hissing sound of pain but did not pull away. Her blood was different from human blood. It was thicker and it glowed with a soft light, but the bandage worked well enough. Jake wrapped it around her side quickly. His hands were steady even though weapons were firing all around them. "Why did you stay?" Queen Azara asked suddenly. Her eyes were locked on his face. "You are human. I am Krithian. Our people are at war. You should have run away with the others." Jake finished tying the bandage and looked at her. "Because it was the right thing to do. Your guards might have forgotten what they promised to do, but I have not forgotten my promises. Your promise is not to me. My promise is to protect people who cannot protect themselves," Jake said. He looked around the edge of the rocks and counted the enemies. The raiders had stopped moving forward. Now they were being more careful. "Besides, I think if I can keep you alive, maybe this whole war can end. You are the queen. You have the power to make peace happen." Queen Azara's face was hard to read. "You have more faith in my power than my own people have." Before Jake could say anything back, the raiders started shooting again. Energy bolts hit their cover and made small pieces of stone fly everywhere. Jake returned fire. He made each shot count. He hit 3 raiders one after another. But more kept coming. They were trying to get around to the sides. They wanted to attack from many directions at once. "We cannot stay here," Jake said. "They will surround us. Then we are already dead," Queen Azara said calmly. "There is nowhere to run." Jake looked around at the valley. She was right. The cliffs were too steep to climb. The raiders controlled every way out. They were trapped with no escape. Unless Jake could change the situation somehow. "Can you use a weapon?" he asked the queen. Queen Azara held up her hands. They looked delicate and fragile. "I am a queen, not a warrior. I was trained in how to govern my people, how to speak with other leaders, and how to create art, not how to fight." "Then you learned today," Jake said. He pulled out his pistol and handed it to her. "Point at the bad guys and squeeze the trigger. The weapon does the rest." She took the pistol, but she clearly did not want to. She weighed it in her hands like it was something strange. "This is not how I thought my time as queen would be." "Yeah, well, life is full of surprises," Jake said. He checked his rifle again. 20 rounds left in this magazine. "Listen to me. I am going to make them focus on me. When they are all shooting at me, you run to those boulders over there. They are closer to where our rescue will come from. If help arrives, they will reach you there first. You will die," Queen Azara said. "It was not a question. Probably," Jake admitted. "But you will not die. That is what matters." For a long time, the queen just stared at him. Then very softly she said, "I do not understand humans." Jake smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Join the club. Most of us do not understand ourselves either." He checked his weapon one last time. "On 3. 1, 2, wait, Queen Azara said at the same time. She reached out and touched his arm. Her fingers felt cool against his skin. "Thank you, Jake Morrison. I will remember what you did here," Jake nodded. "Try to remember it for a very long time. Now run!" He jumped out from behind the rocks and started firing. He ran to the side, shooting as he moved. Every raider turned to look at him. Every weapon pointed at him. Behind him, he heard Queen Azara running. Her footsteps were light on the rocky ground. Jake kept firing and moving. He was buying her every second he could. The raiders came at him like a wave of enemies. Jake knew his time was almost over. He dove behind a fallen boulder. His rifle was empty. He pulled out his last magazine and loaded it. 15 rounds. 15 rounds between him and death. He looked around the boulder. The raiders were being smarter now. They were using rocks and broken metal for cover as they moved forward. Jake could see at least a dozen of them. He knew there were more he could not see. Far away, he could just see Queen Azara reaching the boulders he had pointed to. Good. At least she had a chance now. A raider appeared on his left side. Jake fired twice. The first shot missed, but the second one hit. 13 rounds left. Then Jake heard something that made hope jump in his chest. It was the sound of human weapons firing. The sound came from behind where the raiders were standing. Through all the smoke and dust, Jake saw armored figures coming from the far end of the valley. The human reinforcements had finally arrived, but they were too far away. The raiders knew it too. A group of about 8 raiders broke away from the main group. They ran toward where Queen Azara was hiding. She was trapped between 2 groups of enemies now. Jake was too far away to help her. He watched with horror as the raiders got close to her boulders. Queen Azara leaned out and fired the pistol Jake had given her. Her shots went wild. She did not hit anything. But Jake felt proud of her for trying. At least she was fighting back. Then something happened that Jake would never forget for the rest of his life. A figure dropped down from the rocks above the raiders. It fell like a stone from the sky. It was one of Queen Isara's guards. The big one called Kelran. Jake had seen him get on the transport back at the base. He had watched him run away and leave his queen to die less than an hour ago. But Kelran was not running anymore. The Crithian warrior crashed into the raiders with terrible force. His armored fists hit like hammers. He moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. He tore through the enemy group like they were nothing. Raiders fell before him. Their weapons could not hurt him through his natural armor. In just a few seconds, he had cleared a path to the queen. Jake used the confusion to run toward them. The human soldiers were fighting the main raider force now. The battle was turning in their favor. Jake reached the boulders just as Kelran pulled Queen Isara to her feet. The warrior's face was impossible to read. But his voice carried both shame and determination. "My queen, I have failed you, but I will not fail again." Queen Isara stared at her guard. Jake could see many emotions cross her face. Betrayal, anger, hope, confusion. She opened her mouth to speak, but an explosion nearby cut her off. "This is very touching, but we need to move right now," Jake said. He was looking around for more threats. More raiders were coming. The human forces were pushing them back, but the situation was still dangerous. "Can you carry her?" Jake asked Kelran. The warrior nodded. He picked up his queen with surprising gentleness, like she weighed nothing at all. Jake took the front position with his rifle ready. Together they moved toward the human lines. As they ran, more Crithian guards came out from hiding places in the rocks. One by one, the warriors who had run away now came back. They formed a protective circle around their queen. Jake might have been angry at them for leaving their duty, but he was too tired and too relieved to care. They were here now. That was what mattered. The medical bay on the human ship called Valiant was not made for Crithian bodies, but the doctors tried their best to help. Queen Isara sat on a table while a doctor named Peter Grant looked at her wounds. His face showed both interest and worry as he examined her. Jake stood by the door with his rifle. It was held in a relaxed position, but he was ready to use it if needed. He had been given the job of protecting the queen personally. This was very unusual. Having enemy royalty on a human ship was strange enough. Having a regular sergeant protector was even stranger. But Queen Isara refused to work with anyone else. She would not eat. She would not let the doctors treat her. She would not even speak until Jake was brought to her. The admirals had no choice. They had to do what she wanted. "The wound is getting better," Dr. Grant said. His scanner showed information that looked more like art than medical data. "Your species heals very quickly, Your Majesty." Queen Isara nodded, but she did not take her eyes off Jake. She had been watching him like this for the past hour. She studied him with such focus that it made Jake feel uncomfortable. Finally she spoke. "Leave us," she said to the doctor. It was a command, not a request. Dr. Grant looked at Jake. Jake nodded at him. The doctor gathered his tools and left the room. The door closed with a hissing sound. Suddenly the room felt much smaller with just the two of them. "You know this is going to cause problems," Jake said, breaking the silence. "Me being here alone with you. Your guards are already upset about it. My commanders think you have done something to my mind. And the politicians on both sides are very worried. They do not know how to explain the situation." "Let them worry," Queen Isara said. Her English had gotten much better in just the few hours since the attack. The Crithians could learn new languages very fast. "They do not understand what happened in that valley." "What did happen?" Jake asked. "I mean, I know what we did, but I do not understand why your guards ran away. Everything I heard about Crithian warriors says they would rather die than leave their posts." Queen Isara's face became bitter. "What you heard is propaganda, Sergeant. Stories we tell to make ourselves look strong. The truth is more complicated." She stood and walked to the small window that looked out into space. "My people have been at war with humanity for 3 years. In that time we have learned to fear you." "Fear us?" Jake could not hide his surprise. "You have better weapons than we do. Better ships. Better technology. How could you possibly fear us?" "Because you do not know when to quit," Queen Isara said simply. She turned to look at him. Her crystal face reflected the starlight from outside. "Every battle we win against you, you come back stronger. Every ship we destroy, you build two more to replace it. You fight with a desperation that my people cannot understand. We are taught that honor means we must fight, but we are also taught that wisdom means knowing when to retreat and save ourselves. Your species does not seem to have that second part. Jake thought about the human worlds that had been burned in the war. He thought about the millions of people who had died. We are fighting to survive. When you are desperate, you do desperate things. Yes, Queen Azara agreed. And my guards, when they saw they would probably die, made the choice that Crithian thinking says is logical. They retreated so they could live and fight another day. They abandoned you. They did, Queen Azara said. Pain was clear in her voice. And by doing that, they broke the most important promise a royal guard can make. But they did it because they were afraid, Jake. Because 3 years of fighting your species has taught them that humans do not think the way we do. You are unpredictable. You are reckless. You are willing to die for reasons that make no sense to us. Like protecting an enemy queen? Exactly like that, Queen Azara said softly. She moved closer to him, close enough that Jake could see the complex patterns of color moving under her skin. You had every reason to run. You owed me nothing. Your survival instinct should have made you save yourself. But instead you stayed. You fought for me. You were willing to die for someone you never met before, someone your government says is your enemy. Jake felt uncomfortable with her looking at him so closely. I am not special, Your Majesty. Any good soldier would have done the same thing. No, Queen Azara said firmly. That is where you are wrong. Kelrin told me what he saw before he came back. He said he watched from the rocks as you made your choice to stay. He said you had the chance to run and save yourself, but you chose to stay. Not because of duty, because you had already done more than duty required. You stayed because you could not do anything else. Because something in your human heart would not let you leave me to die. She reached out and placed her hand over his chest right above his heart. Her touch felt cool and strange, like electricity on his skin. This, she said, is what my people do not understand about humans. This is why we fear you and why we should have made peace long ago. You fight not just with weapons and ships. You fight with something we have forgotten. You call it honor, but it is more than that. It is refusing to give up. It is refusing to abandon what you believe is right, even when all logic says you should. Jake did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as particularly honorable or brave. He had just done what felt right at the moment. Your Majesty, I think you are giving me too much credit, and I think you do not give yourself enough, Queen Azara replied. She lowered her hand but did not step back. Jake Morrison, do you know what you have done? By staying when my own guards ran away, by protecting me when you had no reason to. You have created a debt that cannot be repaid. In Crithian culture, such a debt is sacred. It connects not just two people, but entire nations. I do not understand. I know, Queen Azara said with a sad smile. But you will understand soon. When we go to my homeworld, when I stand before the Council of Nobles and tell them what happened, everything will change. The human who stayed when Crithians ran will become a legend. You will become a symbol of what we have lost and what we might find again. Jake felt a heavy weight settling on his shoulders. It was heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. I do not want to be a symbol. I just want to go home. I know, Queen Azara said again. This time her voice carried real sympathy. But heroes rarely get to choose their path, Jake Morrison. You made a choice in that valley, and now both our peoples must live with what comes from that choice. She went back to the examination table and sat down. Suddenly she looked very tired and very alone. Tell me about Earth, she said quietly. Tell me about your home, and so Jake did. As the ship Valiant sailed through the stars toward an unknown future, a human sergeant and an alien queen talked. They talked about home. They talked about hope. They talked about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, their peoples could find a way to end the war. Outside the medical bay, Kelrin stood guard next to human soldiers. His presence there was silent proof of the strange new friendship that was forming. The Crithian warrior had not spoken much since coming back to his queen. But his actions said everything. He had failed once. He would not fail again. And if that meant standing next to humans, learning to trust them, learning to see them as something other than enemies, then so be it. If a simple sergeant could find honor in protecting a foreign queen, perhaps a royal guard could find honor in protecting them both. Jake told Queen Azara about Earth's oceans. He told her about mountains and forests. He told her about cities filled with millions of people. He told her about his small hometown where everyone knew everyone else. He told her about his family, his friends, the simple life he had left behind when he joined the military. Queen Izara listened to every word. Sometimes she asked questions. Her questions showed she was trying to understand not just Earth, but humans themselves. Why did they value certain things? What made them happy? What made them sad? What did they fear? Do humans fear death? She asked at one point. Jake thought about it. Yes, most of us do. But we fear some things more than death. Like what? Like letting others die when we could have saved them, Jake said. Like living with the knowledge that we were cowards. Like breaking promises we made to ourselves about who we want to be. Queen Izara was quiet for a long time after that. Then she said, my people used to think like that too. Long ago, before we became so focused on logic and wisdom, we used to value the heart as much as the mind. But somewhere along the way we forgot. We became so afraid of dying foolishly that we forgot how to live bravely. It is not too late to remember, Jake said. Perhaps not, Queen Izara agreed. She looked out the window at the stars. Perhaps that is why fate brought us together, Jake Morrison, so that you could remind my people of what they have forgotten, and so that my people could show yours that there is more to life than constant struggle. Jake came and stood next to her at the window. Together they watched the stars wheel past the ship. Out there somewhere was her homeworld. Out there somewhere was the future, uncertain and frightening and full of possibility. Are you scared? Jake asked. Terrified, Queen Izara admitted. I am about to ask my people to make peace with a species they have been taught to hate and fear. I am about to stand before the council and tell them that a human showed more honor than our own warriors. The Crithian homeworld of Kyrath hung in space like a giant jewel. Its surface was covered with cities that looked like they were made from colored glass. The buildings seemed to grow from the planet itself rather than being built by hands. Jake stood in the observation deck of the Valiant and stared at the world that had been humanity's enemy for 3 years. He was trying to accept the fact that he was about to walk on its surface. Nervous, Captain Hayes asked. She came to stand beside him at the window. Terrified, Jake admitted honestly. I am about to go to an alien council meeting as the guest of honor. How did my life become this strange? Captain Hayes smiled. You did the right thing at the right time. Sometimes that is all it takes to change the world. She looked at the planet below them. Command wants you to know that you do not have to do this. We can refuse the Queen's invitation. No one would blame you for saying no. Yes, they would, Jake said. And more than that, I would blame myself. If there is even a small chance this can end the war, I have to take it. The captain nodded. She understood what he meant. For what it is worth, I am proud to serve with you, Sergeant. What you did in that valley was more than brave. It was heroic. I just did my job. No, Captain Hayes corrected him. You did what very few people would have the courage to do. You saw a person in danger and you helped them, even though everything told you not to. That is not just duty, Jake. That is real heroism. Before Jake could respond, a voice came through the speakers. Sergeant Morrison, report to the shuttle bay. Your transport is ready. Jake took a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. Time to go be a hero, I guess. The shuttle bay was crowded with people, both human and Crithian. Queen Izara stood in the center. She was dressed in flowing robes that looked like they were made of liquid light. The robes changed colors as she moved. Her guards surrounded her, including Kelran. The big warrior nodded respectfully at Jake as he walked up. Are you ready? Queen Izara asked. As ready as I will ever be, Jake replied. He was wearing his dress uniform with every medal and ribbon in the right place. He felt strange wearing them now. He knew that the most important thing he had ever done would never earn him a medal. The shuttle ride down to the planet's surface was quiet and tense. Jake sat beside Queen Izara. Kelran and the other guards filled the other seats. Through the window, Jake watched as they went down through clouds that sparkled with many colors. They passed over cities that looked like they had been carved from single giant crystals. Everything looked beautiful and alien and impossible. The landing platform was huge, as big as several football fields. Thousands of Crithians had gathered to see their queen arrive. They had also come to see the human who had saved her. Jake felt all their eyes on him as he walked down the shuttle's ramp. He forced himself to walk with confidence even though he did not feel confident at all. The council chamber was even more frightening than Jake had imagined. It was a huge dome made of crystal walls. The walls seemed to make every sound louder and reflect every movement. Hundreds of Crithian nobles filled the seats around the room. Their eyes gleamed in the strange light. In the center of the room stood 7 thrones. 7 council elders sat on these thrones. They governed the empire together with the queen. Jake stood beside Queen Azara as she spoke to the assembly. Her voice was strong and clear. It carried to every corner of the big chamber. She spoke in the Crithian language, but translators helped Jake and the few human observers understand every word. "My people," Queen Azara began. "3 days ago I almost died. An ambush in the valleys of Varath Prime destroyed my convoy and threatened my life. In that moment of crisis, my guards, who swore to protect me with their lives, ran away in fear." A murmur of voices ran through the assembly. People were shocked. Kelran and the other guards stood with their heads down. Shame was clear in the way they stood. But one warrior did not run, Queen Azara continued. "A soldier from a species we have called enemy. A human sergeant named Jake Morrison chose to stand between me and death. He had no oath that required him to protect me. He had every reason to save himself and run. Yet he stayed, he fought. He was willing to die for a queen who was not his own." She turned to face Jake. He could see pride in her crystal features. "This human showed us something we have forgotten in our long history. He showed us that true honor is not about logic or saving yourself. It is about doing what is right even when it costs everything." The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye was fixed on the human sergeant standing there. "I stand before you today because of Jake Morrison's courage," Queen Azara said. "And I tell you now that if this human, this enemy soldier, could find it in himself to protect a life that was not his own, then we can find it in ourselves to end this war. We can find peace not because it is logical, but because it is right." One of the council elders stood up. He was very old. His crystal form was clouded with age like old glass. "What you ask is difficult, Your Majesty. The humans have cost us much. Many of our people have died in this war. And many humans have died as well," Queen Azara replied. Her voice was firm. "But death is all we will have if we continue on this path. I propose we stop fighting immediately. I propose we open talks with the human government. I propose we use Sergeant Morrison as our bridge between our peoples. He has proven himself worthy of trust." Another elder spoke up. "You would place the fate of our empire in the hands of one human soldier?" "I would place it in the hands of the human who stayed when all others ran," Queen Azara said firmly. "I would place it in the hands of someone who understands the value of life, no matter what form that life takes." The debate went on for many hours. Jake stood silently through all of it. He watched as the Crithian nobles argued about his character and his reasons for helping the queen. They argued about whether he could be trusted. It was strange and exhausting, but Jake endured it all. Finally, as the sun set outside and sent rainbow light through the crystal walls, the council made their decision. The oldest elder stood and spoke. "We accept Queen Azara's proposal. Let it be known that the Crithian Empire offers peace to humanity, starting now. Let Sergeant Jake Morrison serve as the bridge between our peoples. Let us learn to understand each other as he and our queen have learned." The chamber erupted with voices. Some people approved and some did not. But the decision was made. Jake felt Queen Azara's hand on his shoulder. When he turned to her, he saw tears of light running down her crystal face. "You did it," she whispered to him. "You saved more than just my life in that valley. You saved us all." In the months that followed, Jake Morrison became the strangest diplomat in human history. He traveled back and forth between Earth and Kyrath many times. He carried messages between the two governments. He helped build relationships. He helped 2 species learn to see each other as people instead of enemies. The work was exhausting and filled with problems and misunderstandings. But slowly, steadily, things got better. Treaties were signed between the 2 governments. Borders were agreed upon. Trade agreements were negotiated. And through everything, Jake remained at the center of it all. He was the human sergeant who had done nothing more than the right thing at the right time. The Crithian nobles began to respect him. They saw that he was honest and fair. They saw that he truly wanted peace for both sides. Even the guards who had run away came to respect him. Kelran became something like a friend to Jake. The big warrior would often stand beside him during negotiations, a silent reminder that honor could be found again even after it was lost. Human leaders also came to rely on Jake. They found that the Crithians would listen to him in ways they would not listen to diplomats or generals. Jake had earned something rare and precious. He had earned the trust of both sides, but the work was hard. There were many times when Jake felt overwhelmed. There were times when peace seemed impossible. There were moments when old hatreds flared up and threatened to destroy everything they had built. During those dark times, Jake would remember the valley on Verith Prime. He would remember making the choice to stay. He would remember that sometimes one person choosing to do the right thing could make all the difference. Queen Isara was always there to support him. She had become more than just a political ally. She had become a true friend. They spent long hours talking about the challenges they faced. They shared their fears and their hopes. Two beings from different worlds brought together by chance and choice, working to build something better. "Do you ever regret it?" Queen Isara asked him one day. They were in a garden on Kyrath, sitting beneath a tree that grew crystal flowers. "Do you ever wish you had run away that day?" Jake thought about it. He thought about the simple life he had left behind. He thought about the enormous responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He thought about the sleepless nights and the difficult decisions. "No," he said finally. "I do not regret it. What we are building here, this piece, it is bigger than me. It is bigger than both of us. If my choice in that valley can give children on both our worlds a chance to grow up without war, then it was worth it." Queen Isara smiled. "You truly are a hero, Jake Morrison, even if you do not see it yourself." 1 year had passed since the ambush in the valley. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the Valiant again, looking down at the planet Kyrath. But this time everything was different. This time he was looking at a world at peace. A world where humans and Crithians were learning to live together without fighting. It was hard to believe how much had changed in just 1 year. The war was over. The shooting had stopped. The dying had ended. Trade ships now moved freely between human and Crithian space. Students from both species studied on each other's worlds. Scientists worked together on research projects. Families who had lost loved ones in the war were beginning to heal. None of it had been easy. There were still people on both sides who did not trust the peace. There were still incidents and misunderstandings. But the fighting was over, and that was what mattered most. "Thinking deep thoughts?" a familiar voice asked. Queen Isara came to stand beside him at the window. She visited human ships often now. She had built friendships with many of the crew members. She was no longer seen as an enemy, but as a friend and ally. "Just wondering how I ended up here," Jake admitted. "A year ago I was just another soldier. Nobody special. Now I am apparently a legendary hero to 2 entire civilizations. It still does not feel real." "You were always a hero, Jake Morrison," Queen Isara said gently. "You just needed the right moment to prove it." She looked out at her homeworld below. A small smile appeared on her crystal face. "My people tell stories about you now. They call you the human who stood. Children learn your name in school alongside the names of our greatest warriors." "That is embarrassing," Jake muttered. He felt his face grow warm. "That is history," Queen Isara corrected him. "And history has a way of finding the people who shape it, whether they want to be found or not." She turned to face him directly. "But tell me truly, Jake, are you happy? You gave up your simple life for all of this. Was it worth it?" Jake thought about the question carefully. He thought about the war that had ended because of what happened in that valley. He thought about the lives that had been saved. He thought about the friendships that had formed between species that once tried to destroy each other. He thought about all the letters he received from soldiers on both sides. They thanked him for giving them a chance to go home to their families. He thought about the children, both human and Crithian, who would grow up in a universe without this war. "Yeah," he said finally, "it was worth it. Every difficult moment, every sleepless night, every time I felt overwhelmed, all of it was worth it." Queen Isara smiled. It was a warm smile that made her whole face light up. "I am glad, because I have something important to tell you. The Council has made a decision. They want to give you a formal title and position in our government. They want to make you an official ambassador of peace. The human government has already agreed to this." Jake felt surprised. "I am not a diplomat. I'm just a soldier." "You're much more than that now," Queen Isara said. "You are a symbol of what is possible when people choose courage over fear. When they choose compassion over hate. The Council believes, and I agree, that you should continue this work officially. We need you, Jake. Both our peoples need you." Before Jake could respond, Kelrin entered the observation deck. The big Crithian warrior had become Jake's constant companion over the past year. Where Jake went, Kelrin usually followed. It was the warrior's way of making up for his failure in the valley. Though Jake had forgiven him long ago, Kelrin still felt he owed a debt. "Forgive the interruption," Kelrin said in his deep voice. His English was now perfect. "But there is something you both should see. There is a ceremony beginning on the surface." "A memorial ceremony? A memorial?" Jake asked. "For what?" "For everyone who died in the war," Queen Isara explained. Her voice became soft and sad, both human and Crithian. "We built a monument in the capital city, a place where people from both our worlds can come to remember those we lost." They took a shuttle down to the surface. Jake had been to Kirath many times now, but he still found the crystal cities beautiful and amazing. The memorial was in the center of the capital, in a large park filled with strange and beautiful plants. The monument itself took Jake's breath away. It was a massive structure made of both human metal and Crithian crystal, woven together in a complex design. The metal and crystal supported each other, creating something that neither material could create alone. It was a perfect symbol of what their two peoples were building together. Thousands of people had gathered for the ceremony. Humans and Crithians stood side by side. Jake saw families holding hands. He saw soldiers from both sides embracing each other. He saw children playing together, not caring that some had crystal skin and others had soft flesh. A human general named Victoria Kane stepped up to speak first. She was an older woman with gray hair and a face marked by years of war. "We gather here today to remember those who fell in the conflict between our peoples. We remember them not with anger or hatred, but with sorrow for what was lost and hope for what we have found. This war taught us that we are not so different, humans and Crithians. We all bleed. We all grieve. We all love." When she finished, a Crithian elder spoke. His name was Torin, and he had lost 2 sons in the war. "For 3 years we saw each other as monsters, as threats to be destroyed. But one human sergeant showed us the truth. He showed us that honor and courage exist in all people, no matter what they look like. He reminded us of what we had forgotten, that every life has value, that every person deserves a chance to live in peace." Then Queen Isara stepped forward to speak. Jake noticed that many people in the crowd were crying. Both humans and Crithians had tears running down their faces. "I stand here today because one person made a choice," Queen Isara said. Her voice was strong but filled with emotion. "One person decided that doing what was right mattered more than doing what was safe. Jake Morrison could have run. He could have saved himself. No one would have blamed him. But he stayed, and in staying he changed everything." She gestured for Jake to come forward. He did not want to. He did not like being the center of attention. But Kelrin gave him a gentle push, and Jake found himself walking to the front of the crowd. "This monument stands for all those we lost," Queen Isara continued. "But it also stands for what we have gained. We have gained understanding. We have gained friendship. We have gained peace. And we owe much of that to the human standing beside me." The crowd began to applaud. Both humans and Crithians clapped their hands or made their own species' gesture of approval. The sound was overwhelming. Jake felt tears forming in his own eyes. He had never cried much before, but lately he found himself crying often. Happy tears, usually. After the ceremony, Jake walked among the crowd. People wanted to meet him, to shake his hand, to thank him. He met a Crithian mother whose son had been a soldier. The war ending meant her younger children would never have to fight. He met a human father whose daughter had been killed in a battle. The man hugged Jake and thanked him through tears for making sure no other fathers would lose their daughters to this war. He met children who asked him questions about being brave. He tried to explain that he had been terrified in that valley, that being brave did not mean not being scared. It meant doing the right thing even when you were scared. As the sun began to set, Jake found himself alone with Queen Isara again. They sat on a bench near the monument, watching the last light of day paint the sky in colors that Earth never saw. "Do you know what the best part of all this is?" Queen Isara asked. "What?" "That it almost did not happen," she said. "If you had made a different choice in that valley, none of this would exist. The war would still be going. More people would be dying every day, but you made the right choice and everything changed." Jake thought about that. He thought about how one moment, one decision, could ripple outward and touch so many lives. It is kind of scary when you think about it. How much can depend on one person's choice? "It is scary," Queen Isara agreed. "But it is also beautiful. It means that anyone can make a difference. Anyone can change the world. You do not need to be powerful or important. You just need to be brave enough to do what is right when the moment comes. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Around them, families continued to visit the memorial. Humans and Crithians together, mourning their shared losses and celebrating their shared future. What will you do now? Queen Azara asked. Now that you are officially an ambassador of peace, where will you go? Wherever I am needed, Jake said. If there are other conflicts in the galaxy, maybe I can help there too. Maybe I can show other species what we learned. That peace is possible if people are willing to work for it. That is a heavy burden to carry. Yeah, Jake agreed. But you know what? I think I can handle it. Especially if I have friends to help me. He looked at Queen Azara with a smile. She smiled back. Always. You saved my life, Jake Morrison. I will stand beside you for as long as you need me. Kelren approached them, his massive form casting a long shadow in the fading light. The shuttle is ready when you are. We should return to the ship soon. Jake stood up and stretched. He was tired, but it was a good tired. The tired that came from doing meaningful work. Ready to go? Queen Azara stood as well. Ready?